Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the USDA NSLP Equipment Grant webinar. Today we're going to talk about equipment grant bids and the evaluation matrix, the next steps to obtaining bids and evaluating your bids for the purpose of the equipment grant. All school food authorities have been notified that they're either proceeding with the next steps or they are not proceeding with the next steps. Everyone was notified today. This webinar will be helpful even if you are notified that you are not receiving the grant. We have a lot of great advice in here about thinking about those next steps and what to do if you are not eligible for the grant at this point. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Claire Nagel. And Claire.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Okay, today here's the objectives that we're going to be reviewing to help you with the winning bid. To obtain a winning bid, first of all, you need to be obtaining 3 bids, and that meets the criteria for the regulations. And we're also going to review some guidance for site visits, and then also review the evaluation matrix, which is one of the documents that will need to be filled out and returned for your grant application. And then awarding the contracts, who will be your supplier of your equipment. And then the winning bid, ensuring the winning bid is the actual correct one that meets all the regulations, and then submitting your documentation. So, obtaining 3 bids. You need to contact a minimum of 3 vendors. You can contact more than that if you want more competition or if you feel that some are not going to be responding. But the minimum should be at least 3 vendors need to be contacted. What you need to provide to them is your specification form. And that was the form that you submitted when you put in your grant. So this is the specification form. This is the one that we're going to be kind of referring to today with all the documents as we're reviewing them. This is for a milk cooler, and we had reviewed this in the previous training, what the specifications were for our procurement of this equipment, the milk cooler. Okay, sorry, hang on. There we go, learning this process. Next, you want to make sure that the bidder information form does require a signature. So those were forwarded to those who are in the running for the grant at this time, and we are proceeding you to the next step. But the bidder information form does require signature, so we just want to kind of make sure everybody understands that that is essential. And then the brand model specification sheet, if that's applicable. So if, like in our spec sheet, we listed that it's the model that we're kind of looking for, the standards and the specifications that we're looking for are included in a Tralson RMC series milk cooler. And so you want to include, if you are referencing a certain brand and model, you want to include the spec sheet. Those are available always online, or if you received assistance from an equipment expert, they would be able to provide those to you. Those need to be provided to each of your contacts for bids, so that they have the accurate information. And then it's really essential also that you include in your communication with those that you are sending out a bid request to the due date. While this is on the specifications form, we're encouraging you to also include this in whatever communication you're giving to them, so that they're real clear on when the bid is due by. Also, providing contact information in case they have questions is really essential. That's also on the specification form, but just, it's good to just put that up front so that they don't have to search for that information. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that schools have procurement policies. You should have a procurement manual, and most of those procurement manuals do speak to obtaining bids or your capital purchases. You need to make sure you review your procurement manual to ensure that you're following the guidance or your standards for your school of doing a capital purchase. Your different limits that you have in there, and those can include, some schools include that if it is over a certain dollar amount, that is also given just as a public notice, whether it's published in newspapers or things like that. So make sure you're checking whatever your procurement manual is for your school. Site visit. So let's review this. We had kind of put out that requiring or making a site visit optional as part of a bid process. If you are having a site visit required or optional, you want to make sure that you also are communicating to your bidders the schedule of when the site visit should take place. It's your decision whether to have the site visit all at one time or to let each one schedule an appointment. The recommendations or the systems that I have used in the past have been just one date and one time, and it's been very successful in the procurement that I did over the years in the past. So that definitely is one option. But again, communication is real critical to make sure that the bidder understands that if it's a required site visit, if they do not attend that site visit appointment time, that then they are not eligible to be accepted as a responsible bidder. So that does take them out of the running for the bid. So you want to make sure you're communicating, again, very clear if it's required or optional. And then when you do have a site visit, it's real important, as I learned the hard way through some of the years, to make sure your experts or your school stakeholders are there, your plumbers, your electrician, your maintenance, heating, air conditioning, if that's part of the project, or the equipment that you're purchasing, if there's any ventilation issues that need to be included. All those experts need to be included with that site visit because they will be the ones to answer the questions of the bidders as far as those details, because they are the expert in their fields. And then it's also recommended that you have a sign-in or a log listing those in attendance. That document then can be presented to any reviewer to show that you were following proper procurement practices, that you have a record of who did attend the site visit, and that way it does approve them or take them into the running for the bid. If you do not have documentation on that, it could be questioned or contested by a bidder. Summary of equipment and your project. Be ready to give a summary of what the project or the equipment is that you're purchasing. Be able to go to the physical location of the equipment where it is being either replaced or will be installed, so that it gives all the details that the bidder will be looking at. And then be prepared for questions. And one thing that we did also during our site visits or learned to do was that if there was questions that we weren't quite sure about the answer, that something maybe we did not think about with obtaining this new piece of equipment, that we did then, since we had the contact information of those in attendance, we answered those questions in email form and documented that the questions were answered to all who attended the site visit. So the evaluation matrix form is a form that we created to help you track who bid on the equipment and also then who would be the winner of the bid. So the evaluation matrix was sent to you, so you need to download that, and it's all fillable document. And then the first thing that needs to be done is to transfer your specifications that are from your spec form onto the matrix, so that you're making sure that you're highlighting all your specs as you are evaluating the bidders. And then fill in each bidder information, completing each field that's necessary or is applicable to the piece of equipment, and then evaluate the bids to determine a contract award. So I'll bring up the form here. So as you can see, this one is filled in, and it is, like I said, we're going to be reviewing or looking at the example of the milk cooler, receiving bids for that. So when I was talking about the specifications, down here in the responsive bid section, there's different things listed if you're requiring. So these match the spec sheet as far as the different fields where you inputted what you required. So we put in some delivery requirements, and we put in that the bidder complete a site visit, and then we also had that they meet warranty requirements and that they remove packaging. So I put X's in there. The first two are always for every bid, that it meets the specifications and that the pricing, provide bid pricing as directed. So up above here, you can see I have the contact person listed, an email address, telephone number, milk cooler, and all the pertinent information to your school. And then I have our 3 bidders. Now, if you sent out 3 bids and only received 2 back, that is fine. We would like you just to list the 3 that you contacted, and then down below, just make a note that they did not respond. There's a note section all the way at the bottom here, additional notes. And just note that you received no response from that other bidder. The ultimate goal is to have at least 2. And if you're running into some problems, feel free to contact us. So you have your 3 bidders here, and here you put in the date that you received the bid, because you want to make sure that they're submitting the bid prior to your deadline of when the bid should be received. And then you want to make sure that you're looking at their bid and then transfer that information onto here, whether they met or did not meet all your essential requirements of the specifications that you sent to them. So as you can see with this criteria, I'm going to go back here to this slide. So here, awarding the contract. So basically determining who wins the bid. So one thing, a couple of things to watch for is why there's a wide dollar variance. And I'll go back to my example to show you that there is one. And then I determined why one was such a different dollar amount. And then the other real critical component is to make sure they're responsible and responsive bidder. So that entails that they have completed everything that you're requiring. There's no missing information. And if there is missing information, it will eliminate the bidder or can eliminate the bidder. And then if you've had a bidder respond that you have had previous, excuse me, that previously was an unresponsive bidder for your school, they can be eliminated. So with this, we mean that if you had a vendor that supplied you a piece of equipment, but it did not meet the specs or they did not install it properly, there can be numerous examples. One example that I have is that we were receiving delivery carts that have to travel quite a ways. And the cart came in and it was approximately 18 inches higher than what the specifications said. And the handle was in the wrong place. The doors were not what was specified. The stainless steel was not the grade that was specified. it was just numerous problems, and we responded to the bidder, and it took us 6 months to finally get to the point where we had enough documentation to null and void the contract. And we received no equipment from them. That I would put on my list of an unresponsive bidder. They received the bid, they received the specifications, but they did not meet the needs of the specifications or the equipment that was bid. So they became unresponsive bidder. If you ever had a situation like that, that was kind of drastic and big, but it does take a lot of time and a lot of documentation. And that's the key point, that if under a procurement review, if you are saying that a bidder is unresponsive, you do need to have documentation to back up why that bidder was unresponsive. And again, if you have any questions about is a bidder, what needs to happen for a bidder to be on unresponsive or unresponsible list, please contact us with any questions. And then once you have determined everything is met, then you go on to document the award. So let's go back to the bid. And you can see here that looking at each of the criteria, all three met the top 3 requirements. And when you get down to bidder completed a site visit, this bidder 3 did not complete the site visit. And all the other requirements were met by all 3. So because they did not meet that requirement, then that eliminates bidder 3. So the other thing also that eliminated bidder 3 was that the price difference here, you can see it's almost 50% less than some of the other 2 bids. So looking at the details of what they submitted in their bid, I noted that they quoted a 35-inch milk cooler, and it does not meet the specifications for a 49-inch milk cooler. Also, this vendor did not attend the site visit. So that's why I'm not taking the lowest bid. And I have it documented down here. So the other thing that happened was that bidder 1 stated they would not be able to remove packaging setup or set up the cooler and train staff. So that took them out of the running for the bid also. And that's why bidder number 2 is actually the one I will award the bid to. So all those details and your specifications definitely guide you in helping determine and award the bidder. And that's why the specifications are a really good tool for you to ensure that you're going to receive a piece of equipment that works best for your operations and meets your needs. And then I also noted over here in additional notes that site visit was required. The following completed the site visit: Red Food Service, Gold, and Lucky Star. But actually Lucky Star never bid, if you look up on top. So maybe they determined that they were not able to meet our needs and did not submit a bid, but the Blue Service, Food Service did supply a bid, but then they did not quote or put a bid in for the proper piece of equipment. Lots of details, and the details will help you ensure that you will receive the equipment that best meets your needs. Okay. So once you have determined your winning bid, check the box to award the contract on your matrix form and save it. And then you're going to be submitting your forms. So I'll turn the mic back over to Lauren to discuss that.
All right, so thank you, Claire. As Claire mentioned, you need 3 bids for each piece of equipment. In the initial email that everyone received that you can proceed, it tells you which pieces of equipment you've been selected to move forward with. Each piece will need 3 bids, and each piece will need a matrix. Because all the bids need signatures from the bidder, those don't have to be electronically filled out and sent back to us. They have to be filled out, but they can also sign for the signature part, and you can scan that back to us. The only thing that really needs to be filled out electronically for sure and sent is that matrix. Signatures kind of mess with our forms. If you have questions, feel free to let us know on that. And then all right. It's important. There are some school food authorities that were notified that in the spring of 2020, they might be eligible to proceed with the bidding process if there are additional grant funds. This is because currently at the moment, we don't know how much everyone has asked for. So we went down a list and decided how much we think we'll be awarding. And those are the SFAs that we're selected to move forward with. There might be reallocation of funds. So there are some school food authorities that might be notified at a later time to move forward. However, if any of the requested equipment is purchased before the award, it cannot be reimbursed through the USDA equipment grant. So if it's a high priority and you need a dishwasher as soon as possible, the equipment grant might not be the best option for you. But if it can wait until the springtime, I would wait.
And we thought we would just share also some recommendations about future equipment purchases. The best thing to do is create a capital equipment inventory database, and you determine what value you want to put on that list. And the list, then you want to include the year it was purchased, the brand name, model number, purchase price, if you're able to find those, and list oldest to newest. And the other thing is to determine, create also a document on that database, research the life expectancy of the equipment, prioritize your budget request. So there is data out available on the web that will dictate to you what your life expectancy is of your piece of equipment. So that can help you determine what you're going to be requesting for your budget for the year also. It can help guide you. So this was a tool that I utilized through the years also to help us determine what capital equipment. I always had at least 3 pieces of capital equipment on my budget request every year, even though I pretty much knew I was not getting all 3. But sometimes I'd end up with 2, so it's better than putting 1. So but I utilize this list to help. So the life expectancy data that's out on the web is variable. And it really is impacted by, depending on your usage, how much is this piece of equipment used? Because obviously every food service operation uses a piece of equipment in a different manner, in a different amount of daily usage. And then also your routine maintenance or preventive maintenance that you're doing to your piece of equipment can drastically affect the life expectancy of the piece of equipment, as well as how the equipment is cared for routinely. Dish machines obviously are hugely impacted as to whether they're delimed or not, is a big one that affects the life expectancy of a dish machine. And with the different types of equipment, combis have definite maintenance that needs to be done routinely that definitely will increase the life expectancy, or should increase the life expectancy of the piece of equipment. The bottom line is you can have this list, and then as the year progresses, I remember I had one year where everything on my capital equipment was fine, lasted through the years, and I had 3 other pieces of equipment that failed and needed to be replaced. So you never know, but it does help you give a guidance, and I think would be very helpful to your administration of your school to see this list and to realize the equipment and the value that you have in the kitchen. It can really help you with your budget request and gives them a good picture of the cost of operating in the kitchen. So just some it's not guidance, it's not required. It's just a good tool to use to help you. And then also it can help you determine what you're going to request for the equipment grant. So that also will help guide you with that decision on what to request.
All right, and here are some of the equipment grant updates for the 2019 food equipment grants. We received 154 pieces of equipment that were requested from 94 SFAs to service over 335 plus sites. So we had a high volume of applications this year, and we changed the process up. So as you can see, we rank our pieces by the highest free and reduced who have never received equipment before, each site that's never received equipment, and then we go to highest free and reduced that have received equipment, and then we rank them below 50% free and reduced. Currently, those who are proceeding with the process, you have until February 28th to return all the requested documentation, which is explained in the email. Important to note that the capitalization threshold is very important as you're thinking about the pieces of equipment and your specifications. If your school food authority has a capitalization threshold of $5,000 and you're requesting a piece of equipment that's $4,000, it will be knocked out of the process. We cannot award anything lower than your school's capitalization threshold. And USDA says that each unit piece of equipment must be over $1,000 as well. And then the plan is after we receive all the grants back, we can review them and have some information and awards ready to go early spring. If you can submit earlier, we're gladly accepting them earlier as well. Are there any questions or concerns? You can write them in the conversation box. Stick around for a few minutes for those. And once again, you can always give us a call and we can direct you to the right person. Oh yes, and this PowerPoint and the live webinar will be posted to the website. And then in the future, we are looking to use these forms for the bidding process in general outside of the equipment grant, but those will be posted at a later date. Excellent. If you don't have any other questions, we appreciate you taking time to participate today, and we look forward to seeing the rest of your applications.